Hey there, Spider-Man, the friendly neighborhood hero that we all know and love, kicks off this animated film by introducing himself. He's a superhero that's pretty much everywhere, from saving New York City to having his own comics, cereal, and even a Christmas album. Sure, he's made some mistakes, but he's always ready to take on his duties as Spidey with pride. Next, we meet Miles Morales, a Brooklyn teen who's about to start attending a fancy private school. He lives with his cop dad, Jefferson, and his mom, Rio. Miles is just trying to go about his day, saying hi to his friends and sticking stickers on street signs. But Jefferson catches him in the act and takes him to school in his police cruiser. Along the way, they see a news report about Spider-Man, and Jefferson makes it clear that he's not a fan. When they finally get to school, Jefferson forces Miles to say, "I love you," in front of all the other students, which is super embarrassing. As Miles tries to adjust at his new school, he gets to work on his studies. Along the way, he meets Gwen Stacy, who doesn't immediately reveal her identity. Later, Miles sneaks out of his dorm to visit his uncle Aaron, who is Jefferson's brother and has a bit of a shady reputation due to his criminal activities. Miles tells Aaron about Gwen, and Aaron gives him some tips on how to charm her, like doing a shoulder touch. The two then head to the tunnels near the subway to do some graffiti, since Aaron is a fan of Miles' artwork. As Miles is spray painting the walls, a strange, glowing spider crawls up his leg and bites him on the hand. Miles barely notices and brushes the spider off before leaving with Aaron. The next day, Miles starts to feel a little off. He hears a strange voice in his head. His clothes are suddenly too tight and he's sweating profusely. When he runs into Gwen, she tries to come up with a fake name for herself. Miles attempts the shoulder touch, but he ends up getting his hand stuck on Gwen's shoulder and then her hair. They have to go see the nurse, who ends up cutting Gwen's hair to free Miles' hand. Later, when Miles tries to go back to his dorm, he's caught by a security guard for sneaking out. Miles freaks out and hides in the guard's office, sticking to everything in sight. He eventually climbs out the window and finds himself walking on walls before running into the streets, amazed by his newfound powers. Miles decides to investigate the tunnel where the spider bit him, and he discovers that the spider is still there and seems to be glitching. Soon after, Miles' spider sense warns him of danger, and he hides just in time to see Spider-Man being pursued by the Green Goblin. The two superheroes have a fierce fight that takes them beneath Fisk Industries, where Wilson Fisk, also known as the Kingpin, is trying to activate a super collider. During the fight, Spider-Man takes the time to get Miles out of harm's way, and he realizes that Miles is just like him. However, when the machine is turned on, strange things start happening in the city, and structures start morphing into weird shapes. There's a blast in the tunnel, and Spider-Man is badly injured. Miles tries to help him, but Spider-Man tells him to hide and gives him a device to shut down the collider. The Kingpin, the Green Goblin, and another villain called the Prowler approach Spider-Man, and they remove his mask. Spider-Man begs the Kingpin not to restart the collider, even appealing to his family. But this just angers the Kingpin, and he kills Spider-Man by crushing him with his fists, right in front of Miles' horrified eyes. Miles runs back home, where his parents find him, and he runs to hug Jefferson. The news spreads that Spider-Man is dead, and that he was actually Peter Parker. New Yorkers are devastated, and Miles buys a costume before attending a memorial service for Peter, where many other fans show up dressed as the wall crawler. Mary Jane delivers a eulogy for her husband, while Aunt May stands solemnly in the back. Miles is inspired by MJ's words to become the new Spider-Man. He wants to test out his powers, but he's not quite sure how to make them work. He later pays a visit to Peter's grave, just as he's spotted by another man, Peter B. Parker. Peter tells Miles that in his universe, he's been Spider-Man for years, and he's now an adult. However, he's lost Aunt May and is divorced from Mary Jane because he couldn't work out his issues as Spider-Man and because he didn't want kids when she did. He became depressed and gained weight, and then the super collider turned on, pulling him into this dimension. After finding Miles, Peter gets knocked unconscious, and Miles tries to swing away with him as the police give chase. They end up crashing on the streets, where people walk past them. Miles takes Peter somewhere safe, and the two of them discuss the possibility that they're from different dimensions. Miles takes out the device that the Peter from his universe gave him, but it's broken. Peter decides to try and find a new one so that he can get back home, since being in this dimension is causing him to glitch and become unstable. However, before Peter can set off on his own, Miles guilt trips him into letting him join so that they can fix things together. Miles and Peter, dressed in their costumes, go to Alchemax Labs, where the data on the Super Collider is being kept. As they try to find a way to sneak in, they encounter the Kingpin, his henchman Tombstone, and his top scientist. The Kingpin's motivation for operating the Collider is to be reunited with his wife Vanessa and son Richard, who fled from him years earlier after witnessing him try to kill Spider-Man. Tragically, Vanessa and Richard were hit by a truck and killed. Miles and Peter manage to sneak into the lab and find the room with the computer. Miles starts freaking out again, and he discovers that he can turn invisible when he's scared. Just then, the Kingpin scientist enters the room, forcing Peter to try and charm her. She's impressed to find Spider-Man alive, but only so she can kill him herself. She reveals that her name is Dr. Olivia Octavius, also known as Doc Ock, and she shows off her mechanical tentacles as she attacks Peter. Miles grabs the computer and the two of them flee the lab, chased by scientists into the woods. The two heroes swing through the trees, but Doc Ock catches up with them. Just as she's about to attack, they're saved by a third spider person, Gwen Stacy. She tells Miles and Peter that she, too, has come from another dimension, where she was bitten by a spider. In that dimension, she saved her father's life but couldn't save Peter. The three of them then escape from the woods and get away from the villains. When Doc Ock returns to the Kingpin, he's not happy to learn that there are two more Spider-Men around. Miles, Peter, and Gwen go to Aunt May's house, where she realizes that the Peter in front of her is from another dimension. She takes them to her Peter's secret hideout, which is filled with different suits, gadgets, and vehicles. There they meet Spider-Man Noir, a black and white old gangster talking hero. Peony Parker and her robot SP-Ster, which is powered by a radioactive spider, and Peter Porker, also known as Spider-Ham, who was actually a spider bitten by a radioactive pig. All of these heroes have been pulled from their own dimensions and into Miles' world. They each plan to stay behind and shut down the Super Collider with a new device so that the others can go home, but Miles insists that it has to be him since this is his dimension. When Peter tries to back him up by pointing out Miles' cool powers, Miles is unable to demonstrate them and convince the others that he's capable of helping. Miles turns invisible and dejectedly leaves the hideout. Miles goes to Aaron's home for help, just as Jefferson and Rio are trying to contact Aaron because they haven't heard from Miles in a while. Miles finds Aaron's apartment empty, but then he encounters the Prowler inside, which prompts him to go invisible again. The Prowler speaks to the Kingpin and removes his mask, revealing himself to be Aaron. Miles is horrified. He tries to get out of the apartment, but Aaron chases him throughout the city until Miles manages to evade him. Back at Aunt May's house, Miles reunites with the other spider people to tell them that his uncle is working for Kingpin. Unfortunately, Miles has led Prowler there, along with Doc Ock, Goblin, Tombstone, and Scorpion. The villains attack, and the spider people spring into action. Even Aunt May gets in on the action by defending her home. Prowler goes after Miles and chases him to the rooftop. Kingpin orders Prowler to finish Miles off until Miles takes off his mask to reveal himself to his uncle. Aaron is mortified that he almost killed his nephew. As he backs down, Kingpin shoots Aaron in the back and then goes for Miles, but Miles swings out of there with his uncle. He takes Aaron to an alley where he is dying. Miles blames himself for what happened, but Aaron encourages him to keep pushing forward. Jefferson finds Miles over Aaron's body, sending Miles fleeing. Jeff then sees his brother and breaks down. Miles is reunited with his fellow spider people in his dorm room, where they accidentally caused his roommate to pass out from shock. Peter weds Miles to his chair and takes off with the goober to shut down the Collider, telling Miles it's for his own safety. Later, Miles' dad Jeff comes to the dorm, but Miles is unable to respond due to being stuck in webbing. Jeff shares the news about Aaron and just wants Miles to be okay. Miles manages to use his powers to free himself from the web. Miles grabs the classic Spider-Man suit from Aunt May's and gives it a fresh coat of paint. He practices using his powers as he swings around the city. Meanwhile, the other spider people manage to sneak into Kingpin's fancy gala, where they are mistaken for part of the staff thanks to the Spidey masks they're wearing. Peter sees MJ and tries to apologize for leaving her, even though she has no idea who he is or what he's talking about. The group heads down to the Collider, but they are caught by Kingpin's goons and a battle ensues. Miles joins in and helps fight off the attackers, but things only get worse when the Collider is activated and causes another earthquake across the city, merging dimensions together. In this exciting adventure, Spider-Man Noir takes on the formidable Tombstone, while Peony and her mechanical sidekick SP/Ster fight against the wicked Goblin. Meanwhile, the wacky Spider-Ham takes down the menacing Scorpion with a cartoonish mallet. As if that weren't enough action, Dr. Octopus goes after Gwen and Peter, while Miles tries to shut down the Collider. The henchmen are taken out in the fray, but unfortunately, SP/Slasher is heavily damaged. This leaves Peony devastated, but she is comforted by Noir and Spider-Ham. Despite the damage, Peony takes the spider back as they prepare to return home. As they say their farewells, Peony goes first, followed by Noir and Spider-Ham. Gwen reaffirms her friendship with Miles before returning home. Peter tries to stay behind and help Miles, but Miles insists that Peter go back and fix things in his own world. So Miles sets off to shut down the Collider, but the formidable Kingpin stands in his way. Just as it seems like Kingpin has the upper hand, Miles is joined by Jefferson, who enters the scene. With renewed determination, Miles uses his powers to blast Kingpin away and wet him up, pressing the button to shut down the Collider for good. And with that, the day is saved. After the action-packed events of the day, Miles takes a moment to call his dad, Jeff, to let him know he's okay. When he meets up with his dad, Miles approaches him as Spider-Man and gives him a hug, letting him know he's doing a great job without revealing his secret identity. Jeff then discovers Kingpin, who has been webbed up and prepared for arrest. With the crisis averted, Miles goes back to his regular school duties, but also takes on his new role as Spider-Man, earning a lot of new fans throughout the city. Meanwhile, in Peter's dimension, he heads off to patch things up with MJ. As Miles settles down for a nap in his room, a dimensional portal opens and he hears Gwen's voice calling to him. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, you should also watch these 2 more interesting videos. Also, subscribe to this small growing channel so you don't miss out on new videos in the future.